back! Yay!
Hey, we fucking did it! Another weekend.
Another weekend. Today we're doing a different kind of episode. We're here today with Mr. W.D. Ehrhart. He goes by Bill. He is an author, a Vietnam expert, actually, a Vietnam vet, author, poet, just overall interesting guy. And I had just started reading his books, and I wanted to have him on the show, and he came on like a miracle. Say hello to Mr. W.D. Ehrhart, everybody.
Well, hello to all you out there in whatever you are, radio land or TV land.
Fucking radio land or whatever it is now.
How are you doing, man?
Well, let's put it this way. That's sort of like with what's going on in domestic politics and the crowd that's in charge of this country. That's sort of like asking Jackie Kennedy. So other than that, Mrs. Kennedy, how did you like that?
Other than the horrible things that have been happening.
But
aside from that, I'm fine. I'm still vertical. The Trump Gestapo has not come and arrested me yet.
There you
Not
go.
yet.
There you go.
I'm still reasonably healthy. My wife still loves me.
Perfect.
good.
So all things considered, I'm doing pretty well.
Good.
Can't beat that shit.
And where are you at today?
I live in suburban Philadelphia. I'm actually in the town of Bryn Mawr, and we've been here for about 13 years. We lived in Philadelphia for 28 years.
Right.
I grew up in Upper Bucks County, which is one of the counties near Philadelphia. So I was far afield in my 20s and into my 30s, but have largely migrated back to within 40 miles of where I grew up.
You know, it always sucks you back in like that. Every place like that.
Well, I always thought it was some kind of random decisions on job things. But in retrospect, I think it was this big cosmic magnet sucking
That's what I'm
me
saying.
back.
It just always pulls you back in, and you think you get away, but no.
For our readers, I've read the trilogy of books that you had written. The Vietnam per Casey book. Is it Passing Time? And
Passing Time is the second book.
Yeah, and then Busted.
Busted.
Yeah.
All three of those are a trilogy written.
Well, sort of.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know where you want to go with this discussion, but that's pretty interesting how I ended up with a trilogy.
Right.
When I started writing Vietnam Percy, I had for 15 years I'd never written anything but poetry.
Right.
And I did not. In retrospect, Vietnam Percy was me teaching myself how to write more than 25 lines. I didn't understand that at the time, but I didn't know what to do with that volume of material. It took me, I set out to do this in a year. It took me over 2 years, 3 complete drafts. I wrote thousands of pages. And finally, I still didn't have what I wanted to write. I didn't want to write about the Vietnam War. I wanted to write about coping with America after the war.
Okay.
After I came back to the States. And as you know from Vietnam Percy, I'd barely gotten out of Vietnam by the end of that book. And I gave up after 2 years. I just gave up. I'm sick of this and never want to see it again. Gave it to a friend of mine, and I said, I never want to see this again. Find me an ending. And he said, you don't want to write anymore? I said, no, I'm sick of this thing. And he said, end it at the shower scene.
Yeah, you said cut off 50 pages,
I threw out 50 or 60 pages that came after that, and I ended at the shower scene. And I do have to say, even though I'm saying it myself, it is actually the greatest ending of any book ever written in any language at any time in history. I love that. That ending is exactly where my head was at that point in history. But the book came out, it was published, it didn't make the New York Times bestseller list, but it got some pretty good reviews. And so after about 6 months after it came out, I thought, well, why don't I try to write the book I really meant to write, which is the book about coping with America. When I was in Vietnam, I knew that if I were still alive on March the 5th, 1968, I could go home, and it was done. I had a rotation date. I get back to America, and it's like I spend 13 months trying to get off Mars, and then I suddenly find myself on Jupiter.
Oh,
And like, what the hell? What country is it? Where am I? When does this end? Where's my rotation date out of this crap? And of course, there is none.
there's none. Yeah.
So I actually wrote Passing Time. It took about 6 months because I knew what I was doing. But I got to the end of that book, and I'm out on the oil tanker when that book ends. My career as a merchant seaman ended when the U.S. Coast Guard raided the ship and I was busted for controlled substances.
Yeah.
I did not put that into the ending of Passing Time because at that moment, Nancy Reagan was the first lady, and she was telling everybody to just say no.
Yep,
and I hadn't said no. I still hadn't said no in 1986. And I'm thinking the Philly cops will read this book, they'll raid my house, and I won't get out of it as easily as I did on the tanker, where I was found not guilty in a federal court of law, I'll have you know.
Yes.
So I did not put that in Passing Time. But 6 years later, I realized nobody's reading anything I'm writing, so I can write whatever the hell I want. And I finally finished the story, which is The Bust. That book is called Busted, and it's all about my legal difficulties, which happened to coincide with Richard Nixon's legal difficulties in the spring of 1974. So that's how, if I had known what I was doing, there would only be one book. And that book would be Passing Time, and Busted would be the last 4 chapters of Passing Time.
Right.
But I didn't know what the hell I was doing, and so I end up with something that they call a trilogy. So that's the real story of how that trilogy came into being.
Right. Okay. First book, didn't really want to write it. It gets written. Second book, you wanted to write.
Well, you had to write the first book to get to the second book, I guess.
Yeah, I had to teach myself how to write this.
Right. Yes.
Anyway.
I found, I mean, I don't want to get there too quickly, but I found Busted to be almost like completely different writing to the first book by the time I got there.
It is. And partly, I started writing Vietnam Percy in 1981. 1980, really. And then Passing Time I wrote in 1984. I didn't write Busted until 6 years later. I wrote that in 1992. It was published in 95, but I wrote it in 92. And basically, Busted, you have to read, you can read Passing Time without having read Vietnam Percy, and Passing Time makes sense. In fact, about 10% of Vietnam Percy is actually embedded in Passing Time.
Yeah.
But by the third book, I was tired of telling that story. I didn't want to say all that stuff over again.
Yeah.
So I simply jumped into the story. Unfortunately, if you haven't read Passing Time, if you read Busted by itself, it doesn't hold up.
Oh, okay.
Because there's people in it that all the main characters that I talk about are all of that information is in Passing Time.
Yeah.
But in retrospect, I wish I would have done a better job. It's also, as you can tell, it's all one continuous story, basically.
Yeah.
Whereas the first 2 books are in very short chapters.
And
so it is a different kind of book. It's also, I think, a funnier book.
I agree. I actually had a thing I was going to talk to you about, a line I liked out of Busted, and it's at the very beginning, so I'm not giving away the end of the book or anything.
All right.
Yeah,
Does it get busted?
But you described. I'd never heard anything nice about prisons. They were dark, evil places where men without hope and mercy raped each other and stabbed each other and defecated on toilets without seats. I just love that
imagery of that.
Yeah, I just like that is actually why I'm afraid of prisons as well.
100%. Yeah.
And of course, the ghosts in the story.
Yeah.
they're like the Greek chorus. They're the guys who keep saying to me, stop taking yourself so seriously, Ehrhart. Lighten up a bit here. You don't have any problem. We're the ones that have problems. We're dead. I actually had the first edition of that book was published by University of Massachusetts Press. McFarlane has since done a new edition of it. But when UMass published that book, the editor, I said, this is nonfiction. This is a true story.
Yeah.
And the managing editor actually called me up and said, how can this is a novel? This is fiction. I said, no, it's not fiction. She said, how can you have ghosts in a book that is nonfiction? And I said to this woman, you go fight a fucked up war when you're 18 years old and see who you talk to for the rest of your life.
Right.
And that, as you can see in the book, it's billed as nonfiction. That shut her up. She had nothing to say.
Yeah.
What can you say? So, and the fact is, I had to give those ghosts, I had to give them I had to make them real.
Right, give them their validity.
But we spend all of our lives, we live with dead people all the time. I mean, I don't know about you. Are your grandparents dead?
Yes.
Have you forgotten them? They're still in your life, aren't they? Maybe parents, brothers.
Yeah.
We live with ghosts constantly.
Yeah,
we just don't quite, they don't quite have the form that these three, but these three guys have been alive to me since I was 19 years old.
Yeah.
And so I just gave them a form that was fun.
Yeah.
That's all. If I were a real fiction writer, I'd write a whole damn book about these three guys and them hanging out with the NVA dead guys, and but I'm not creative enough to actually write fiction. I have a very pedestrian brain. If it didn't happen, I don't know how to make stuff up.
Right.
Did you give it a shot ever? Doing any fiction writing?
I did. I actually tried to write a novel one time, and I had a great cast of characters, and I had a great setting. It took place on the oil tanker that I worked on.
Okay.
And the main character was a World War II veteran named Frank, who was an alcoholic who had been torpedoed 3 times during the war and survived. And this is my novel, and I start writing, and I wrote about, 60, 70 pages. And then I just didn't know what to do next. Now, I have friends who write fiction, and they've told me, once you create your characters, they'll tell you what they want to do.
Right.
Well, I don't know. I must have pissed my characters off because they weren't saying crap to me. And I gave up.
Right.
If you go, I have a literary archive at LaSalle University, and if you go to that archive, you can find the draft that I wrote and never finished. It's about 70 or 80 pages. I didn't know what to do.
End it with that shower scene again.
I can't make stuff up. I don't know. So I've been accused of writing fiction, but I haven't because I'm not smart enough. I'm not creative enough. So my poems are basically all autobiographical, even though as a teacher, I tell my students, I'm retired now, but I spent many years teaching high school, and I would tell the kids, the persona of the poem is not the poet.
Okay.
But in fact, in the whole body of my poetry, 60 years of writing poetry, I maybe have 3 poems that are not, that the persona in the poem is not me. I can't, again, I just
There's
can't
no
make
making
stuff
it up.
I don't know how to make stuff up. So,
were you doing poetry before the war, or was that something that you...
Oh yeah, I was. I started, the first time I wrote a poem that a teacher didn't make me write, I was 15 years old. My parents had been doing some kind of bullshit, which parents always do when you're 15 years old. And I remember going up to my room and writing a poem about running away to a desert island and living like Elsie the Contented Cow. Now, talk about mixed metaphors. I'm a cow on a desert island, but anyway. And luckily, that poem never survived. It's gone.
Nobody got to see that one.
Spared that. But ever since then, here's the thing. When I was a high school kid, I was not going to be the quarterback of the football team. I was not. I was not the handsomest guy in the world. I was, but I wanted girls to notice me.
Yes, yes.
And wow, if I write poetry, you slip a poem into Linda Titus's locker in the morning, and then you ask her to go to the movies at lunchtime. Your odds of getting a yes are much better if you slip a poem to her. I also realized I was very lucky. I had two very good teachers of English my last 2 years of high school. They were both men. They were both veterans. Neither was a combat veteran, but they were both veterans. And they both loved poetry, and they made it safe for a boy to love poetry.
Okay, yeah.
And I read really good poets, and I realized somewhere along the way, all these guys we were reading, and I have to confess, back in 1964 and 65, the people we read were dead white guys. Except a few exceptions, but mostly they were dead white guys. But they were really good writers, and they weren't really dead, because there they were, right on the page of the book I was reading. I knew what they thought and felt. They had made themselves immortal. They had cheated the Reaper.
Yeah.
And that was really cool. So between wanting to attract attention from the girls and wanting to make myself immortal, I started writing poetry on a regular basis. Now, lots of kids at that age do write poetry.
Oh, yeah.
I can pick up my old high school literary magazine, and there's all these kids in there, none of whom became writers. I don't know what it was about me. Certainly the Vietnam War gave me a hell of a lot of stuff to write about, but the Vietnam War did not make me a poet.
Right.
It just didn't. The impulse was there several years before I ever joined the Marines.
Bill, you also talk about in your book about leaving, what is it, your summer before senior year? You went to California? Did you hitchhike there?
No. I was kind of a crazy kid growing up.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Not the poetry thing, but they're just taking off.
I was the third child of a small town minister, and my brothers had, no matter what I did, they'd already done it.
Oh,
except they were well behaved and did well. Somehow my way of responding to all that was to be like a real pain in the ass, hard to deal with. And when I was 16, I was at a big party we were at my friend's house. His name was Pete Koziak. Whoever's parents were going away for the weekend, that was Party Central. And Pete's parents had gone to Chicago for the weekend, and we had this big party there. And a bunch of us would sleep overnight, and then we'd clean up the house in the morning and get rid of the beer cans and the cigarette butts, and nobody'd know the difference. Well, Pete's parents came back a day early. Okay. And we all got busted, and Pete got grounded for the summer. Now, there was some power struggle going on between him and his father. I don't know what the hell it was, but this is on a Saturday. Pete calls me Sunday, says he's been grounded for the entire summer, and he's not going to put up with that crap. He's going to California to find two boys that we had met the year before in Doylestown. He was going to California to find the Meyer brothers, and did I want to come along? So Pete was actually running away from home. I was just keeping him company. I thought I can spend the whole summer sitting on a lifeguard stand at Percy Swimming Pool, or I can go to California. And that was a no-brainer.
What to do?
So off we went. We actually got Patty Good, a friend of ours, drove us to the train station in Philadelphia, dropped us off. She's in Pete's father's car. She drives back to Doylestown, leaves it in the Doylestown shopping center parking lot with the keys in it, and walks home. Meanwhile, Pete and I get on the train, and we go to Chicago. But to throw him off the trail, we switched from a train to a bus in Chicago, and then we took a Greyhound bus the rest of the way to Los Angeles.
That's a
and
drive.
Then we got on a local commuter bus and went down to Fullerton, California. We knew these guys lived in Fullerton. We actually found them the day that we got to Fullerton, and we slept in their car in their driveway without their parents knowing we're there. And then the next day, they took us to. We looked at some things in the newspaper. We found a hotel literally on the wrong side of the railroad track in what they call Beantown, where the Mexican migrant workers lived.
Uh-huh.
We found in the Allen Hotel. We got a room with a double bed, a sink, a dresser, and a closet, toilet and shower down the hall. We had to share the bed. $15 a week for the two of us.
Oh, wow. I'd still be living
and
there.
And a guy living at the hotel says, a guy living at the hotel is working in this factory. It was Silent Fold, aluminum sliding door company. He said, they're hiring. Why don't you come with me on Monday?
Perfect.
So we went down, and they hired us. I left Percy on Monday morning, and exactly a week later, the following Monday morning, we had a place to live, we had a job, we were happily ensconced in California, and of course, my parents had no idea. Our parents had no idea where we were. I actually put a postcard in the mail on the morning I left Percy saying, "I've gone to the Newport Folk Festival. I'll be home in 5 or 6 days. Don't worry about me."
Oh, wow!
Just to throw them off the track,
right?
Apparently, there was a 13-state APB out
Holy
on us
shit.
in New England and central PA. Meanwhile, we're in freaking California.
We're just living it up out there. I got my own shit going on.
I had a ball. We're two 16-year-old kids in Southern California. It was just an amazing summer. And it took my parents they didn't know where the hell we were. It took them a long time to figure out that Pete and I were together. I made the mistake after about 5 weeks of calling my pal Scott to ask him how's things going back there on the East Coast. Unfortunately, I called collect.
Oh no!
So when Mrs. Steelman gets the phone bill, she goes, "So Scott, who do you know in Fullerton, California?" So eventually they found us. But we stayed. I got back east the day before school started for my senior year.
Your parents weren't just livid with you?
I was going to say, how was it getting back? Good Lord.
My parents were so damned happy that I was alive. and my mother told me years later, "Well, you got yourself to California. You got a job, you got a place to stay." There were actually some adults. I made a girlfriend out there, and I think her parents knew I was kind of shaky. But if we'd have gotten in real trouble, Linda's parents would have been able to help us out.
Okay, yeah.
And so my mother said, "Well, you managed to do all of that and survive it, and you obviously were never going to listen to anything I said again. So what the hell?" And that was the end of that. That was all. My parents ever said. They were happy to have me back. Right. What went on with Pete and his father, I have no idea.
Right.
Have you ever?
My parents were.
I'm sorry. Have you ever asked how long the search went on? How long before they just gave up? They're like, "I don't know."
I think they just kept looking. They kept looking. Eventually, Pete and I lived in two different towns, and we went to two different high schools. So at first it took them several weeks to figure out that Pete and I were actually together.
Right.
And
two
then
manhunts going on.
Yeah.
They must have kept looking until they finally figured out where the hell we were.
Right.
Because they didn't know what had happened to us. They didn't know if we were in Mexico or dead, lying at the bottom of the ocean.
Right.
They didn't know. But my mother was apparently very impressed that I had the ability to get to California and find work and essentially make a place for myself.
Right? It's got to be impressive after a little. It's like, I'm mad, but at least you did it. I trust you a little on that.
But that's, I do that in the summer of 1965, and then in March of 1966, I decide I'm going to join the Marines.
Mm-hmm.
But all of that is because I was seriously a screwed up kid.
You didn't sound like it though. even in the book, it seems like at every turn, no matter where you were, at what point in life, you were making like, you were making a lot of lemonade from lemons.
Making moves, yeah. Things just worked out.
It seemed not things worked out.
Yeah.
Not, you know, like that, you know what I mean, though.
Yeah, just, I mean, you go to California, you get a job, a house. You go to, let's say, like, you jumped on that ship by the time you were in passing time. You know?
Yeah, I always seem to land on my feet.
Right.
You do.
But I think I caused my parents a great deal of anxiety.
Probably that.
Yeah. I was thinking about Vietnam earlier whenever I was coming over here, and I imagine you're thinking about it every day from the time you went there.
It never goes far away.
Right.
Do you find yourself reading other people's books about the war as well?
Oh, right.
I did. When I, Passing Time talks about how basically I came back from Vietnam and wanted to forget the whole damn thing and just it didn't have anything to do with me anymore. I'm out of it.
Yeah.
And I actually tried to do that for 2 years and 3 months. Meanwhile, I'm drinking myself to sleep every night. I'm adding drugs to it. By the time I get to college, I'm miserably unhappy, and I did not connect that to the war.
The problems, the PTSD of the war.
But it was, the killings at Kent State, the murders of those kids at Kent State, and it was murder.
Oh yeah. Oh yes.
That's what finally pushed me to speak out against the war. But for 3 months, for 12, 13, almost 14 months after that, the approach that I was taking was that, we really meant well. We're America. We're the good guys.
Right.
We tried to do the right thing, and something went wrong, and I don't know, so we really should get out. And it wasn't until I read the Pentagon Papers that I realized this was not the only mistake that the U.S. government made was taking on a people who are tough as nails.
Yeah.
That was the only mistake they made. But the Vietnam War was not a mistake. And so, and I have been angry about it ever since. It's just, it doesn't go away, especially because the wrong people learn the wrong lessons from that experience. What the U.S. government and powerful, arrogant people who run the show, what they learned was that the American people will put up with anything as long as it's not their kids coming home in body bags.
For sure.
They learned that too late in the Vietnam War to save the day and keep that war going.
Yeah.
But if you look at what unfolds with the Reagan's wars in Central America and the first Gulf War, that the American people don't really care what's being done with their tax dollars as long as it's not their kids coming home dead.
Yeah.
And moreover, essentially, the worst consequence of the war in Vietnam is the end of the draft.
Oh yeah.
And here's why. What has happened since they created this so-called all-volunteer military is that the consequences of American foreign policy have been completely removed from domestic politics.
Yeah.
What we are doing in other countries is no longer of any concern to anybody. I taught at a private school for 20 years. I taught on I think about 1,600 students. Not a single one of the boys I taught did what I did.
Right.
Graduated from high school and went into the military as a private.
Right.
And why not? Because they had plenty of options.
Right.
They all got into college, and they didn't all go to Stanford, but they all went somewhere to college. The people who go into the military and have been going into the military since the mid-1970s are people who have very few options.
Yeah, very little options.
What we have now is basically an economic draft.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yes.
And the people going into the military are those, it's that segment of our society who have the least say in the political culture.
Yeah, but they're the ones out there dying for it.
Yeah. So, that's the consequences of the Vietnam War are with us constantly. You ask, do I still think about it? I don't think about it in terms of my experience, but it's always there, and it's inevitable it's there. Now, you asked me, the real question you asked me was, do I read stuff? I wanted to know, when I realized, Jesus, what the fuck happened in Vietnam? How did this happen?
Yeah.
I wanted to understand, and I started reading everything I could get my hands on. And, in fact, in that process, I stumbled on the history, the real history of my country. And for almost 30 years, I read everything that I could get my hands on. I mean everything. Until about the mid-1990s, when I discovered that I was not learning anything I didn't already know.
Okay.
And at that point, I just stopped seeking out material about the Vietnam War, nonfiction, fiction, it didn't matter. Now, here's the thing. I know so many people who are veterans and who are writers, historians, that I still end up reading 2 or 3 or 4 or even sometimes 5 books a year that have something to do with the Vietnam War. So I'm never going to get away from it.
Right.
But
right.
if I don't have to read it for some emotional obligation to a friend of mine or something, or they'll ask me to write a cover quote or something, I don't read a book about Vietnam if I don't have to.
Right. Not going out of your way for it anymore.
People have been telling me, just somebody the other day said, you ought to read Matterhorn. It's a great book. Karl Marlanx is a great writer. What am I going to learn from it? What's it going to teach me? The war's hell?
Right.
Vietnam War's fucked up? Why should I read his book? What am I going to learn from it? Nothing.
Oh, shit. You really fucking shed some light on the thing that I actually experienced.
Who needs it? So that's, I don't know if you're familiar with a book called The Long Reckoning by a journalist named George Black.
No.
It's a very good book.
Okay.
It is a study of veterans who've gone back to Vietnam and done good things.
Okay.
The center of the book, the main character is a guy named Chuck Searcy, who's a veteran, who started in the early, I guess sometime in the 1990s, a program called Project Renew, that they remove landmines.
Oh, okay.
And unexploded ordnance and stuff. And it's still very much a viable, they've been around for 30 years now. But Chuck is one of the guys that George Black focuses on. And they're doing amazing stuff. But George actually asked me if I would write, give him a cover quote. Well, the first thing I said was, George, you're a best-selling author. You write for the New Yorker. Surely you know people who are more important than me. And actually, it was very nice. He said, "Yeah, but I read Vietnam Percy, and I think it's the best memoir ever written about the Vietnam War, and I'd like you to write." Well, I did it very politely, but I said, "George, I'm not going to read a 500-page book just to write a couple of sentences for you. I don't owe you anything, and I don't want to read this book." And I didn't read it. It's actually a good thing I didn't read it, because it turns out I mentioned in the book 4 times.
Oh, jeez.
and it looks a little dicey when you're in a book and then you say nice things about it on the cover of the book.
Yeah.
That looks fishy.
Yeah.
So I'm glad I turned him down, because I didn't know that at the time. But anyway, the answer to your question is I haven't voluntarily read a book about the Vietnam War in almost 30 years. But I still have to read about it all the damn time.
Yeah.
I got excited. I was really stuck in going through every document, documentary of World War II for a while, and I was watching another podcast, and somebody had mentioned your it's Percy. That's the way it's pronounced.
Percy, it's pronounced.
Yeah, I've been saying it wrong.
It looks like Percasi, but
it does look like.
That's what he said. That's what I've been saying.
Oh shit!
And anyway, somebody on another podcast actually said they were reading it, and they were so into it, and I was like, well, I just need to get a different focus on a different war for a little bit. So I started reading that, and I was fascinated by your books. I went one after the other, and I read the second one while I was on vacation, and that's whenever I contacted you in the first place. And I was thinking about you say that the poetry is not therapy for the war, right? Is the writing that you do for the books? Do you find that to be therapeutic at all?
Not really. I do. I have to say, I really bridle at the notion of poetry as therapy.
Right.
Because I have worked for 60 years at my art, at my craft. I'm really good at it, and if I'm honest with myself, the writing I was doing about the Vietnam War, and I was writing about other things at the same time, but writing that stuff down really was therapeutic. I mean, it helped me to figure out how I really felt.
Yeah.
Without the writing, I don't know that I ever would have been able to end up where I am today. So even though I don't like to think of it as therapy, it was in its own way therapeutic. I remember very early on in college, and I went to college after I was out of the Marines, and I went to a very, very lefty college. Swarthmore College is like a pretty hotbed of leftism. Quaker school, and I wrote. I worked one time. I remember doing this, spending a couple hours working on a poem that was basically, well, yeah, the war might be wrong, but what do you college kids know about it? You wouldn't even be allowed to protest if it weren't for guys like me.
Right.
And as I'm writing this, I'm realizing this is bullshit. I wasn't defending their rights in Vietnam. I wasn't fighting for American freedom. This is the claptrap that we're told. And I took the pages I had produced, and I crumbled them up and threw them away. Because I realized this is not true. This is not what I think.
Right. It just feeds back into that machine of bullshit.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, and the poetry, and I was writing entirely poetry at that point in my life. I only wrote poetry for the first 15 years of my writing life. It did, in fact, help me figure out how I felt and what I was feeling and how to articulate it. There were three things that kept me from being a statistic, because when I came back from the war, I was really a mess. And one of them was my parents, who didn't understand what the hell had happened to me, but who never shut the door on me. And I mean, I was freaking crazy. I'd go home to visit, and in 5 minutes we'd be shouting at each other, and it'd be me. I'd be screaming at them about the fucking Nazis running this country. But they never shut the door on me.
Right.
I had friends at Swarthmore College who were the least political people on that campus. They didn't care if I'd been to Vietnam or Borneo or Mars. I liked to smoke dope and drink beer, and that's all they cared about.
Right.
And so when I was with them, I could be just me.
Right.
I wasn't the veteran. I wasn't the war guy. I was just me.
Yeah.
And those guys actually remained very dear friends of mine for a lifetime. Unfortunately, we're all at an age where 2/3 of them are dead now.
Right. Yeah.
But I just had lunch. Today with one of the guys I went to college with.
Oh, that's a trip.
And the third thing that kept me sane was the poetry.
Yeah.
Being able to express what I was feeling inside. I think if it weren't for those three things, some combination of those three things, I would have ended up in prison or dead.
Yeah. It's good to
either suicide or I would have wrapped myself around a tree while driving drunk and stoned, something.
Yeah.
Because I was, as it was, for 10 years after I came back from Vietnam, I was basically hanging on to the world by my fingernails.
Yeah.
When I met my wife, when I first met her, she wouldn't even go out with me for a year and a half.
And get your shit together before it.
And I met her 11 and a half years after I left Vietnam.
Uh-huh.
And she told me, after she finally decided to give me a tryout, she told me that she was interested, because I sensed this woman's interested in me. But every time I'd ask her out, she'd make some excuse. It was never no, I don't want to go out. And she said that she was in fact interested in me, but that I frightened her. I was the most intense person she had ever met. And that was 11 and a half years after Vietnam.
Right.
I was like I was an open wound.
Yeah.
In the years I was at Swarthmore College. There was a girl, well, she's not a girl now, she's a woman, but a dear friend of mine who wrote a poem about me when she was when we were undergrads. And she says, there was something wild about Billy. Come too close and you might bleed. That's how the poem ends. That's how the poem ends.
Right. Jeez. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway. Time bomb.
But I and it's still, and even after that, I mean, Ann did finally married me, and because, but it then took me another 20 years to turn into a reasonable human being. And I'm not kidding. I am not kidding. You should ask my daughter, who's now 39, but when she was in her teens, she couldn't understand why Ann hadn't left me.
Oh, wow, yeah.
This is my own daughter.
Right.
Because I dealt with serious anger issues. I never hit my wife, I never hit my daughter, but I was an angry man, and I was angry at everything almost all the time. The damage I did to my daughter it breaks my heart.
Right.
She points out to me, you can't fix that, Dad.
No,
that's done.
No, that one. That's just there now.
What are you going to do next? What's the next right thing for you to do?
Yeah.
So she's understanding about it, but I say, and there's a new book of mine was just published, actually a collection of essays was published in the end of May, and it's dedicated to Anne, who stuck with me all these years, and to Leela, who got stuck with me.
What's the name?
That's the truth.
What's the name of this book?
Oh, it's called "Getting Shot At." Essays on war, conflict, and culture clash.
Okay,
it's a collection of essays.
Right.
Anyway,
what a great name for a book. To be honest with you, was that your title?
Oh yeah. All of my books. What I did with that one, I usually try to find the title of an essay or a book. You know, this new book of poems is called "Smart Fish Don't Bite," and there's a poem in it called "Smart Fish Don't Bite." With this collection of essays, I couldn't find a title that did what I wanted it to do. But there's one of the essays that is about a young Palestinian woman who I've become friends with over the last 2 years, and she had written to me talking about that they in Graham Greene's, she makes a reference to Graham Greene's The Quiet American. We don't want to get shot at. Now, this is a woman with 2 small children and a husband, but we don't want to get shot at.
Right.
And I took that sentence and I turned it around and said, okay, that's the title of the book, Getting Shot At.
Yeah. Okay.
It's actually a reference to the Palestinians, not to me in Vietnam.
Right. Okay.
But
in fact, in this collection of essays, and I write these short essays, they're like newspaper type op-ed things, 750,000 words. So there's actually like 80 essays in this 300-page book. Only 2 of them deal directly with the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
And a few of them make passing reference to the Vietnam War. but most of it is about all sorts of other stuff. You know, that was 13 months of my life, and they were profoundly influential on my life. But there's a whole lot more to my life than that.
Right.
And my essays, you know, the books you read are all focused on the Vietnam War, but my essay collections are whatever pops into my head, whatever pisses me off, whatever I think needs to be written about. I've written a lot about the Orange Cheeto down there in Washington.
Hey, there you go.
I you know, whatever, and the thing with essays is it's like a book of poems, the same thing.
Yeah.
After you get enough of them, you just slap them between two covers and call it a book.
Right now it's a fucking book.
Well, I was gonna say that about your books, though, is like you're saying it's just about Vietnam, but I was seeing so many, you know, not direct parallels, but you know, it feels like whenever you have a president, like maybe the president we have right now, or you know, Nixon, it feels like how could this has never happened before or anything like that. But I mean,
it's 100% happened.
Yeah,
before. It's just cyclical bullshit.
Oh yeah,
you know?
Yeah. It's just like you haven't lived through all the other guys that have done similar things. You know, I found that, you know, really enlightening. I even bought, I was buying that book, or I bought the book, Street Without Joy that you suggested.
Oh, yeah. Bernard Fall's book.
Yeah. This guy, that's crazy.
He told me about that one.
Yeah,
that
died on the street he was talking about in the book, man.
Yeah.
It's crazy. But I've just started that one. I haven't gotten into it completely. Like your other ones, they were much easier to read. Well,
on that, not to cut you off, but there was something I had read by you. It was just an article, maybe. It was called Spat Upon Soldier.
Oh, something like that.
It was, something. I can't remember exactly what it was.
The myth of the Spat Upon Soldier.
Yeah, but like some of the stuff in there was like, man, this is exactly the kind of shit that it was like. You're talking about going to college, and then the Marines were only paying you like $135. It wasn't covering any fucking thing, you know. And the fact that you could go over there and be a man that's supposed to be out there doing everything that the government tells you to do, but when you get back, you still can't fucking sign a contract. You can't fucking get a loan for a car.
Yeah.
You're still a child in America's mind until they ship you off, which is still the way it's always been.
And of course, I talk about that in that article.
Yeah.
That I come back from Vietnam. The day after I get back, I buy a car with the money I'd saved over there.
Yeah.
I could buy a brand new Volkswagen for $2,021. Thanks, and drive it away. But when I went to get insurance for that car, I had to be carried on my parents' insurance policy as a dependent child.
Right.
I am a combat wounded Marine Corps sergeant. Mm-hmm. But the state of Pennsylvania says, no, you're just a child dependent on your parents.
Can't have no
You want to
beers.
talk spat upon? I mean, that happened when I was 19 years old, and I'm still angry about it.
Right, yeah. That's the thing.
That's being spit on. The people who spit on me were not the hippies and the anti-war people.
Right. It was...
But it's now... And, of course, you know what Americans were seeing in the news about veterans returning to America was... guys like me out in the street protesting the war.
Uh-huh.
We weren't being spit on. We were the anti-war movement.
Right.
And yet that aspect of the veterans' experience has been completely erased from American popular culture and replaced by these terrible anti-war... If you had spit on me in San Francisco airport when I've just gotten back from Vietnam, I'd have beaten you to a pulp. Right. I would have spent 20 years in prison for assault and battery.
Yeah, you just got back to killing people with your bare hands.
Thousands of veterans claim this happened to them.
Right.
Would they all stand there and like hang their heads and go, "Oh, golly,
woe
they
is
don't
me."
like me"?
Yeah, bullshit.
Come on,
bullshit.
Give me a break. That's the best proof I have that never happened.
Yeah, well, that's
it never happened.
Yeah,
there's actually a brilliant book that I refer to in that article.
Okay.
Jerry Lemke's book, The Spitting Image.
That was it. Yes.
In which he goes back and studies all this. He's looking for documentary evidence at the time. And there's none. It doesn't exist. All these stories begin after the war ends.
Yeah. It's this.
Oh, take my word for it. I was spit on. Take my word for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
But,
like I say, it's parallels everything that still happens now. It's the sensationalized bullshit to rile people up and turn them against you.
Yep. So that one bothers me a lot.
Yeah.
I have done everything I could to make a dent in the popular memory, but you can't. It's simply treated as a fact.
Right.
That veterans, soldiers and veterans were abused by the anti-war movement when they came back to the States.
Yeah.
I've had so many people like Peter, Paul, and Mary, the musical singing guys.
Yeah.
Who
Yes.
I was at a conference in 2015, and Peter Yarrow is still alive, and he was there. And he starts off by apologizing for how veterans were treated when they came back. And I actually stood up in the middle of this conference and said, "Peter, that's bullshit. What are you?" And he goes, "Well, I don't want you to." Yeah, dude, why are you? But this guy,
I love it.
They all just buy into this bullshit.
Fuck
didn't
yes.
happen.
Well,
it simply didn't happen.
I thought that until I read your book. I thought that until I was 46 years old.
Well,
So
I've known a couple of people that had gone to Vietnam, and it was just like, when they came back, turned into the hippies, turned into the anti-war movement because of what was going on there. They actually knew and then was telling the people what was going on, and they were the ones more getting silenced because they were the actual people over there. Everybody over here, it's all stories that just get convoluted and bullshitted over, and then you get a guy that comes back and is like, this is exactly what fucking happened. Oh, they want to silence the fuck out of that guy. Let's fucking martyr the shit out of him.
I as I said, the day I walked onto the Swarthmore College campus, and I'd never been to the school at all.
Yeah.
They offered me the best scholarship of the schools I applied to. The day I walked on campus for the first time, there was a Viet Cong flag flying from the main administration building.
Oh wow!
The upper floors were girls' dormitories, and somebody had stuck a VC flag out there. And I'm looking at this thing, going, "Oh fuck!
Right?
What the hell
fuck did I just walk into?"
But in fact, nobody ever mistreated me or treated me badly, or even there may have been people who kind of looked at me like, what's this weird guy doing here? But they didn't hassle me or anything.
Right.
And then by that spring, I actually, I went to the day after the murders at Kent State, I went to the student strike meeting at the Student Center and made my first public speech against the war. And I was, and then within another year, I was heavily involved in Vietnam Veterans Against the War.
Yeah.
After they ended the draft and went to a lottery system, from 1969, 1970 on, Vietnam veterans were the driving force of the anti-war movement.
Exactly. Yes. Exactly. But
you probably are familiar with that, what they called Operation Dewey Canyon 3 in Washington, D.C. in the spring of 1971. That culminated with all these vets throwing their medals over the fence. That's those were the Vietnam War veterans I knew.
And
that's the powerful shit that they just brush under.
Was John Kerry involved with that?
He sort of was. He actually gave a very powerful speech before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, I think it was, on April the 21st, 1971. It was a very, very powerful speech, and the rest of his career has been downhill since then.
I know it was kind of.
He was a poobah. He was an aristocrat from Massachusetts, very well connected. His family. He used VVAW, and VVAW used him.
Gotcha.
But I have never thought of him as really being an integral part of VVAW.
Yeah. It's just a face for him.
And of course, he ran for Congress in, I believe it was 72, maybe 74. But he was doing the lefty anti-war talk, and he got his ass kicked.
Oh shit!
And when he ran for the Senate in 1980, he was singing a very different song.
Oh, I bet.
This is the guy who was in charge of the committee that should have produced the evidence to impeach Ronald Reagan over Iran-Contra.
Yeah.
but Kerry didn't have the courage or the political courage to do that.
Yeah,
and then, as Secretary of State, John Kerry is sending young kids over to do what he said no one should ever have to do when he gave that speech in 1971.
Yep.
Now, I have zero respect for that son of a bitch.
Yeah. Kind of. Whenever I was bringing it up, I was like, I know this might be a problem.
A little sour on it. Fuck him. Fuck that guy. He's a two-faced piece of shit, man.
So he was not really, when I think of the guys who really were deeply involved in VVAW, he's not on the list.
Are you still
guys like Bobby Mueller, and Ron Kovic and people like that, and a bunch of the people I know, they were, so that was that. Anyway, as I pointed out, I wasn't spitting on myself and calling myself a baby killer. Right. Nobody else did either.
Nope.
I actually begged Lynn Novick to, I'm in that Burns and Novick Vietnam War.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Documentary, and I begged them to use the story about my trying to get insurance for my car.
Yeah.
And being told I'm a child dependent on my parents. They wouldn't put it in.
Oh wow.
Because it didn't fit the narrative. That documentary is very badly flawed.
I was about to start.
I knew it would
keep
be.
watching
I did want to even talk about that because I was wondering how you had gotten involved in it, and because it's like the epitome of documentaries, basically.
Yeah. How much time do we have?
We got enough time, man. We got time.
I was in a documentary in 1983, the first actual documentary film about the Vietnam War. It's called Vietnam, A Television History.
Yes. Yeah.
And I was in that, and I was really, really happy with the way that the guy who filmed my segment handled me.
Yeah.
But then I did another thing called Making Sense of the 60s that I was very unhappy with, and I had several really bad experiences with documentary filmmakers in the early 90s, and I decided, screw these people, I ain't doing this again.
Yeah.
I can tell my own story, and I did not. I was asked to be interviewed by Cronkite Productions, by Peter Jennings, ABC News, by the Military Channel, by the History Channel, and I'm telling them, nope, I ain't talking to you.
Yeah.
Somebody from the Military Channel, they were doing a series of documentaries on major battles fought by the U.S. military since the Second World War.
Okay.
And from the Vietnam War, they were doing the Siege of Khe Sanh and the Battle for Hue City.
Okay.
And the woman who called me up and asked if they could interview me didn't even know which of those two battles I'd been in.
Oh, fuck off.
and I said, excuse me, but you need to do some homework. Go do some homework and then call me back. Well, of course, I never heard another word.
No.
But Lynn Novick got a hold of me in 2011. That I didn't talk to anybody for 20 years.
Oh.
But Novick got a hold of me. She's working with Ken Burns. Well, like it or not, Ken Burns, I knew this is going to be the documentary.
Right.
But Lynn Novick had clearly read work of mine, knew who I was, could talk about me intelligently, and that impressed me.
Yeah.
But okay, they've at least gone to the trouble of figuring out who the hell I am. I was one of the very first people that they interviewed. They interviewed me in 2011. The thing didn't air until 2017.
Right.
And I knew this is.
Has it been out that long?
Yeah.
2017?
Oh, yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Forever, man.
9 years.
Forever.
Okay.
I knew perfectly well that Bank of America and David Koch were not going to underwrite a scathing expose of American imperialism.
No.
That just wasn't going to happen.
No.
But I figured this is going to be the documentary because it's frigging Ken Burns.
Yeah.
And at least I get a little bit of a voice. I also, before I actually did the interview, I actually said to them, you got to give some of your money to the people we screwed.
Okay.
You got to give money to the Vietnamese.
Yeah.
And Lynn goes, "Oh, we're public television. We're not for profit." And I said, "Lynn, give me a break.
You're
You're
not making any fucking money. You're not making any fucking money on this bullshit.
You've got to give some money to the people we've fucked.
Yeah.
Or I'm not going to do this." Well, quite amazingly, because I'm still in touch with the guy from the Vietnam and television history.
Yeah.
He said they'll never agree to that. Well, they did.
Nice.
They put it in writing.
Shit. Well, yeah.
So I figured, well, no matter how bad this thing is, at least some of the people we screwed are going to get
something good's going to come out of this. Whatever.
So I figured, okay, I'll go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
And it was badly flawed in a number of ways.
Yeah.
But it also it got me invitations to speak to audiences I never otherwise would have been invited to speak to.
Yeah.
And that was useful.
Yeah.
I got invited to speak to the Freedoms Foundation out of Valley Forge National Park.
Uh-huh.
They didn't know what they were getting. As soon as I started talking, they really regretted it, and they'll never ask me back again.
Fuck the government.
I got to say what I had to say, and there were some other. That was my favorite, but there were some other audiences that would never have thought to invite a guy like me to talk to them. So that was useful, and I do think that the American people probably learned some things that they hadn't known. I mean, I've been studying this for 50 years.
Yeah.
I just started.
I know more than almost anybody else on the face of the earth. I could have had a PhD. I have a PhD in Korean War studies.
Right.
I could have had a PhD in the Vietnam War, but I wasn't interested in doing that kind of bullshit.
Yeah.
So I noticed things that, I think other people probably saw a lot of that documentary. They did do a pretty good job of exposing the duplicity of both Lyndon Johnson and Richard Nixon.
Yeah.
I mean, they do have that quote of Lyndon Johnson saying to, I believe it's Mike Mansfield, they have a recording of him saying, "We can't win this thing.
Right.
Yep.
It's going to end up just like Korea." And this is 6 months before Johnson sends the Marines to Vietnam.
Yep.
That's pretty shocking.
Yeah.
It also, so there were things that most Americans heard for the first time and never heard before. But there's other things. They start off. They handle the entire 2,500 year relationship between Vietnam and China in one sentence.
It was very short. It was very
One
short.
sentence, period.
Yeah.
And if you don't understand that relationship, you will never realize that winning the Vietnam War was never an option.
It was not going to happen.
Not going to happen.
No.
Period.
No.
No matter what we did, it wasn't ever going to happen.
No.
And yet they gloss over it like it doesn't matter. And then they have that bullshit about, this was, these were honorable men who thought these weren't honorable men, they were criminals.
Mm-hmm.
They all knew from the start that they weren't going to win. They were war criminals.
Yeah.
They should have been prosecuted. So, the movie, the documentary starts off on very shaky ground as far as I can.
Right. Yeah.
Well, I did like how they were showing a lot of the North Vietnamese, or just a few North Vietnamese soldiers, and giving like their point of view too at the same time.
That was good.
You know what I mean?
That was good.
Like you don't typically see that, so I did like that. But I mean, I'm just starting. I haven't even gotten to anything that has you in it. I'm only on the second episode, and now I know it's bullshit.
I think I show up in episode 3 or I think I'm in episode 3 or 4. But I'm in 4 of the episodes in a significant way, and I make cameo appearances in 2 others out of the 10. So you'll get to me eventually.
What's the clip from that?
They left the best stuff. They left the best material I gave them on the cutting room floor.
Of course,
because it didn't.
It's not going to fit their agenda of it.
They present the American soldiers as victims of the war, just like the Vietnamese. These poor American kids. Look what happened to them. At one point, as you read in Vietnam Percy, we're out on this operation out in near the horseshoe. Doesn't matter to you where I was, but then our column is stopped we're not going anywhere. And it's a stinking hot day, and we're bored to tears. And we find this little Buddhist temple, and we destroyed it. We battered the walls in and knocked it down because we were bored teenagers.
Right.
And I tried to get them. I told them that story, and that they wouldn't put it in because their version of the GIs in Vietnam were, we were these innocent victims. When what we really were was a bunch of heavily armed juvenile delinquents.
Right.
But that didn't fit their narrative.
No, that's not going to prove any kind of innocence for it. No. Yeah.
And of course, the thing with the insurance policy, what do they put in? They have Karl Marlantes saying how he was abused by the anti-war movement when he came back. And as he's saying that, they're showing the entrance to a military base with a bunch of people, coats and ties, skirts and blouses, holding signs. They're clearly not shouting anything.
Right.
And this is the best visual that Burns and Novick can come up with to match Marlantes saying that he was abused by the anti-war movement. And why couldn't they get a better visual?
Because it wasn't fucking
none
there.
exists.
Because it wasn't fucking there. Yeah.
And you may remember, well, you haven't gotten that far. There's going to be a woman who, toward the end of it, it's episode 8 or 9, who in tears, sobbingly apologizes for abusing the veterans and being so mean to them. And, and I'd like to ask her, did you ever spit on a vet? Did you ever call anybody a baby killer? Because I know what the answer is. The answer is no.
It's no.
But there it is. But me telling them, no, that didn't happen. This is what really happened. Here's the people who were spitting on me. That didn't match their narrative.
Oh, yeah, they don't want to hear that shit.
They didn't use it.
Yeah,
They didn't use it.
Nope.
So, I'm not sorry I did it, but I have to remind myself that if they ever made a documentary that satisfied me, I'd be showing it to you two guys in my basement.
Right, yeah.
It would never see
it's
the light of day.
not seeing the light of day. Yeah, right. This is
so you take what you can get, and I did get some invitations that I wouldn't otherwise have gotten.
Right. Just speak your voice out a little more.
The big thing is I actually got, I don't know how much they get. I actually suggested that they donate money to this Chuck Searcy Project Renew.
Yeah.
They wouldn't do that. But they did tell me they made a donation to an organization called Peace Trees Vietnam. Well, I immediately write to Chuck and said, hey, you ever heard of these guys?
Yeah, let me see what the fuck this is. This is real.
And he goes, well, yeah, we work with them all the time. You can't plant trees until you take the mines out.
Right.
So it was a legitimate operation.
Yeah.
A couple of years later, I asked Lynn, look, I know you won't tell me how much you donated.
Yeah.
But can you look at yourself in the mirror and tell yourself how much money you donated and not snicker like you pulled a fast one?
Yep.
She said, yeah, I can do that. So it must have been substantial enough for her to not be embarrassed by it. I don't know what it was, but so whatever else happened, there was that.
Well, that's it's a fucking start.
Yeah, it's a start, and I mean, it educates us. At least it opens the door to people to start digging further. You know, to like find out more information, and that's what I'm doing right now with it as well.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask as well, like, you just titled something about fishing, and I remembered a story out of your book is not being able to keep the fish that you had caught when you came home from Vietnam.
Oh yeah,
What's this?
I actually have a whole poem about that.
I don't know this one.
Yeah,
about that experience. But I a couple of years it would have been the summer of 1971. So it was 4 years after Vietnam. I tracked down one of my best buddies over there, a guy named Jerry Gaffney. I give him a different name in the book, but in Roseburg, Oregon. And he took me trout fishing on the Umpqua River, and this is in western Oregon. And I caught this big damn rainbow trout, must have been 14 inches, maybe 16. Big. It was big. It gets bigger every time I think of it.
Yeah.
You fucking know it, yeah.
But
9-inch fish.
I finally hauled this fish in. And it had really put up a hell of a fight. And I'm holding the damn thing, and I just thought, oh, I can't eat this.
Yeah.
This is a really brave fish. And I threw it back in the river.
Has that been something that you've been able to do since then? Like, have you been able to fish or anything like that?
Well, I've only been fishing a very few times. I'm not really a fishing person. I went fishing because Jerry wanted to go fishing. Right. I went fishing in Montana with an 8-year-old girl on a cattle ranch in Montana. One day in the summer of 1971, that was the same summer I saw Jerry. I was driving around America in my little red Volkswagen. And I went fishing one time in 1975 with my couple of friends from college. The last time I went fishing was 1975. I've never gone fishing again. I don't really like fishing. Fishing has never been nice to me.
Right.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of luck either. I was just curious. Well, I just heard that story in there, and I was just like, I mean, of course, I know that movie Deer Hunter pisses you off, but yeah. I remember that scene that's in there where you couldn't pull the trigger on the deer whenever he came back, and that's what that reminded me of for some reason.
No, I just thought this is a really tough fish. This fish really is great.
Shit to do with that.
Deserves to live. And so I tossed it back, and I never said anything, but I think Jerry understood what was going on.
Right.
I don't know how much of that had to do with my having killed people in Vietnam.
Yeah, that's what. I thought that must have been
I don't
why.
think it was connected.
Yeah,
and
okay.
I never was a hunter. I didn't grow up. I never fired a weapon until I joined the Marines, and I've never fired a weapon since.
Right. Yeah.
Well,
every time I got around guns, somebody got hurt. So I don't like.
Yeah, we're pretty good on that. Yeah, we're done with that.
Bill, I guess we're coming up to the end right now of our interview.
I would think so.
Yeah. But I wanted to ask, like, what do you do nowadays? Like, what's something like?
What's occupying your time now? Just more writing?
my work history up until I was 51 years old, it looks like a minefield that a drunk staggered through. The longest full-time job I had until I went to work at the Haverford School was 21 months. 21 months, and I was 51 years old.
Oh, wow. Okay.
The shortest job I ever had was 8 hours.
Damn it.
Yeah, I think I pulled
And
one
I
of
quit
those.
that one.
Yeah, one day, that's enough.
But in 1999, the headmaster at the Haverford School for Boys, he knew me from my writing. He actually was a retired Army colonel, but he had spent his last 12 years teaching literature at West Point. And he used to teach my poetry at West Point.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, they're a very unusual man.
Yeah,
but
no kidding.
He then when he retired after 30 years, he was only 52 years old. And the next thing I know, he becomes the headmaster at the Haverford School for Boys, which was at the time like 10 miles from me. He called, so he had seen me in front of students. You know, they wear uniforms and salute anything that moves, but they're just kids.
Yeah, right. Yep.
So he had seen me interacting with students.
Yeah.
And he had me over to the school a couple of times to do lectures and stuff. And then in January, very early January of 2001, one of his teachers had to retire literally overnight on a medical disability. And Joe called me up and said, I really need help here. You've got to come and teach the second semester for me.
Holy shit.
And I was making my living as a speaker and stuff, and I had a number of things on my calendar. I said, well, I have to do this and that. And he said, we can take care of all that.
Yeah.
I finally said, we only had one car at the time, and I said, you got to rent me a car. I can't leave my wife without a car.
Yeah.
And he said, I'll give you mine. And he lent me his VW Cabriolet convertible for 5 months.
Ooh.
So I said, okay, I'll do it for one semester. I'll do it for one semester, and that was the spring semester 2001, and I retired in June of 2019.
Oh,
I
wow.
stayed
A little longer than a semester.
I had a ball. I loved it. I had so much fun with teaching there. But I've now been retired from that for 7 years. Yeah. I didn't expect to live this long. I mean, I really didn't. I thought I'd maybe make 70.
Right.
Yeah.
So what do I do now is your question.
Yeah.
I'm back to doing what I was doing before Joe Cox hauled me out of mothballs.
Yeah.
I write.
Yes.
I published a new collection of poems in July of last year, about a year ago. I just published this essay collection in late May of this year. That's what I do. I write, and I read a lot. I still read all the time. I'm right in the moment. I'm in the middle of a huge, like a 500-page biography of John Quincy Adams.
Oh, nice.
Because I'm a lifelong learner. I'm still learning about the world I live in.
You're still going out?
I read whatever interests me.
Yeah.
The next book I get done when I finish the Adams book, I have a book about a young African American kid from Philadelphia who actually, through a summer recreation program run by the city of Philadelphia, learned to play horse polo.
Okay.
And now is the director of that program.
Nice.
And makes his living doing horse polo with these mostly inner city kids in Philly.
What a trip!
And it's a memoir of his. It's his life story. It's a memoir, and my childhood friend Suzanne said, "You really got to read this book. It's good." So that's the next book I'm going to read. I read whatever interests me, and everything interests me.
Right.
I don't read much fiction anymore. Occasionally, I read a lot of fiction when I was younger. Not so much anymore, because mostly I just want to know what the hell happened.
What's going on?
How do you explain this?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm doing these days. I read, I write, not every day, but most days. I keep up a very lively correspondence, all of it by email. I don't do Zoom or any of that stuff.
Yeah.
But,
do you still go out and do any readings? Do you read any of your work still out live?
I do when I get the chance. Actually, Saturday I'm going to be doing something fairly local.
Thanks.
That is a writers group that invited me to come and sit in with them for an afternoon. In the first week of August, I'm actually going to be doing a pretty cool reading at a community center in Easton, Maryland. But mostly, not a lot. I had a very active schedule when COVID came to town, and then all that stuff stopped dead.
Yeah.
And it's never really picked up again.
I totally understand that. Yeah.
A year ago, I was up at Dartmouth College, had a wonderful time up there for 3 days, and more locally, I could drive there. I did a very big reading at Albright College, which is in Reading, Pennsylvania, about an hour and a half drive. Both of those were really cool, but those are really, that's it. And in April, I did a reading in Woodbridge, New Jersey, which is about an hour and a half north of here, but not nearly as much as I would like. And I don't know if people have forgotten me, or if there have been invitations to do things by Zoom. The University of Alaska asked me to be in this conference on Vietnam War literature, but it was all by Zoom, and they didn't say a word about money. And I don't want to say I won't do this unless you pay me,
right?
Because I'm not a greedy son of a bitch. But this isn't my hobby.
Yeah. Right.
And so they didn't mention money, and I could tell them quite honestly, I'm sorry, but I don't do Zoom.
Yeah.
In my entire life, gentlemen, I can count the number of times I've been on Zoom on both hands and still have one finger left over.
Right. Yeah.
I can count it on one hand.
I was gonna say, yeah.
Four of those times I was paid $500. Actually, one time $750.
Yeah.
The first time I was asked to do
That's
it, I said to the guy, "I'm sorry, I don't do Zoom. Thanks for thinking of me."
Yeah.
And about 20 minutes later, I get a phone call from Dan Ellsberg, and he says, "Bill, I'd really like you to do this." Ellsberg and I developed a very wonderful friendship in the last decade of his life.
Uh-huh.
But he calls me up and says, "I'd really like you to do this, Bill." Well, how the hell do you say no to freaking Dan Ellsberg?
Right.
So I said, "Okay, I'll do it."
Yeah.
But it turns out that without my asking him, they paid me $500 anyway.
I mean,
because if I do Zoom, I have to ask my wife to set up her laptop
right.
and stand there beside me the whole time because I'm afraid if something goes wrong, I won't know what to do. I mean, I'm seriously technophobic.
I don't know shit
my
about
desktop my desktop computer will not do Zoom.
Right.
It does not have a camera. I don't have a smartphone. I don't have I know it's here to stay, but I don't like this technology, and I have fought it off as valiantly as I can.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of these places now just assume, well, you can just turn on your computer and you can give us your expertise.
Yeah.
And it doesn't cost you. Well, fuck you.
That fucking happening. Yeah.
This is not my hobby.
Right.
Now you guys aren't paying me, but I don't have to get my wife to set up.
I was gonna say, it's like a spoiler. We have zero money.
And I look at your website. I think you've got like 143 subscribers.
It's not much, man.
No, it's 187 now.
187 now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah?
We're picking up.
But I just thought, hell, this sounds like fun, and actually, I've been having a good time.
We've been having a great time talking to you, for sure.
So it's fine, but I would like to do more readings because I enjoy getting in front of an audience and sharing my stuff. But on the other hand, at this point in my life, if I don't care. I'm not going to go out and
going out of your way for it.
You let me. I'm not going to go out of my way for it. I'd rather stay home and watch the Tour de France.
Right. Yeah.
Well, Bill, thank you so much for being on our show.
Thanks for taking your time for this,
I can't even believe that you even emailed me back whenever I sent it.
When he told me that, it's like bullshit.
Yeah, I really can't. And you've been such a pleasure to talk to, and lending us your time.
Yes.
And we've just loved having you on, man, and I've been enjoying your book so much.
Well, thank you very much. You are welcome, and it's been a pleasure. And when this thing finally goes up, I'm sure you'll send me the information of how I can actually show it to my wife.
100%, yes.
100%.
Okay.
All right, Bill. Thank you so much. And we have a little song we do at the end, and then I'll hang up on you. All right? Is that all right?
Okay.
Yeah, here we go.
Take care.
All right, see Thank you so much, Bill. We'll see you later.
Okay. See you guys.
Bye.